Divine timing as a Christian mystic sucks, and if you agree, then you might want to hear some of my thoughts on it. And if you disagree, it's going to be very interesting for you deciding whether or not you're going to keep listening to this. Hey La, welcome to Coffee with Avila. I'm Aviana Lemaire, and on this channel we discuss neurodivergence and greater living, and increasingly Christianity and mysticism as an extremely unusual event. At least so far as it seems. But I've been thinking a lot about timing. It's a constant conversation in the manifestation community, and it's a constant conversation outside of it where people just want what they want when they want it, or they need what they need when they need it. All this stuff is valid, a want, a need, blah, blah, blah. It's not really about that. What it's about is the concept of those of us who have grown up inside of Christianity are probably familiar with the concept of something needs to happen. Did it happen? No. Well, it's either because, this is what I always experienced, it's either because you're doing so well and the devil wants to mess with you because you're doing so well, or it's because, well, you did something wrong and the devil had an open door because you opened it, and so you did something wrong. But there's a place you get to, that kind of stuff triggers a lot of thought and healing, and wherever it lays, it lays. It's not really about that either as a debate, because those are too many different subjects to get into, and whether it's wrong or right and how it applies and how it doesn't apply is an entirely different series of videos. But what it is right now is something for those of us who have kind of been through the ringer and the basic, and what's not enough and what's not good enough just isn't enough, and it's not good enough, and we're just trying to figure out how to move on and how to live. I don't mind saying the timing in my life has just sucked eggs from the beginning to the end, the bottom to the top. And I'm going to say something now that might or might not sound crazy, but some of us might understand. I've lived a life where a lot of times people will say something bad happens in your life, and you'll say something like, I didn't ask for this, I didn't sign up for this, blah, blah, blah. And I've always had this fascinating experience in my life where every time I'm about to say that, something stops me. And it's that sensation you have as an autist when you know that what's about to come out of your mouth is something wrong. You can't say it because it just is not ethically sound. You feel like you're about to tell a lie. It feels wrong. And for some of us, it's such a strong distaste to be sitting here lying about anything. But so far as I know, I didn't ask for any of the junk in my life. But I've never been able to say I didn't ask, I didn't sign up, blah, blah, blah. Almost never. Because I get that sensation. I've been thinking, and I know in my personal case, it's caused me to think, what did I agree to before I left God and came to this place that by comparison is a living hell? What, even with whatever upsides and everything else, there's a whole lot of living hell in this place, and it's here for a reason. What is it that I might have signed up for, believed in? And I'll tell you one thing that some of us might agree with personally, some might disagree, but I know in my case, I know myself so well. If I knew everything I was going to go through and I believed I was here for a mission, I would have agreed. I know it. I've even done it on this planet with everything that was on me. I went through hell because I believed there was a mission, and I believed. I stayed for love. I did what I did to take care of people. I put myself on a line. You do things that sound like they're completely insane and you can't believe you're doing them. I put my body in between something that could harm someone and their body one time because I loved them, and horrible things were going on. And I spent my whole life knowing 100% I'm not a person who steps in physically into the gap because it's horrifying. And I'd spent my whole life learning what was self-preservative. So I knew I'd never do something like that, and then I did it. And I put myself in a place where I could have been ended at any second because I loved them. And also, as an interesting aside, where I was in my life and going through everything I was going through with all my health problems and everything, my instant mental math was the person I love, their life is worth more than mine. Because my logic at the time was they have a lot more chances and opportunities. So if one of us is going to survive this, it needs to be the person who has a chance of living a life afterward. And that's a whole other conversation. It's not really where I stand anymore, but I didn't know I was that person who would go stand in the gap physically. Because we know this term spiritually. I didn't know I was that person. And part of the reason why I did that is because when it came down to it, it was love. And I couldn't think of anything more loving to do than protect somebody who was doing their best to help someone else in a really horrible situation. And someone I knew that well. And so I sometimes think I didn't sign up for this life and all this stuff, and the things that I need that I don't have, and the things I need to go away that I have way too much of. I know there's a good chance that before I got here, I agreed with God. I have this sensation somewhere in me like it's a memory, and I don't know if it's a memory, if it's a soul memory or what, but I think maybe I did agree to all of this. And that makes it really complex for me as a Christian. When I want things and they're not coming, there's always a question of, are you wanting something that goes against God? And it's not some kind of obvious basic stuff. I'm not here for the basic conversation everybody has where it's like somebody is praying that they can hook up with 3 to 4 different people over the course of the next few weeks because they want to have a wild summer. We're not talking about something like that. We're talking about, but God, I really need a home. And it doesn't seem on the surface, right? The average person who's at all healthy in any way, no matter what their belief system, is never going to be able to hear somebody needing a home, a safe place, and assume that that is inherently satanic, destructive, that it's wrong, that you're missing the mark, that you're offending God, nothing like that. So when it's something like that, you know you need a home, or the experience of, God, I need a home for me and my children, or anything like that. And you just need this thing, and it never comes, and you spend a lot of time thinking, am I somehow accidentally going against the will of God? And the reason why that's valid for us to think is because we don't know in every moment of our lives what is the will of God. We don't know what every last instance of our timing is supposed to be about. We don't know where we're supposed to be, what we're supposed to pick up and sit down. You don't know what's supposed to be in the background or the foreground of a video when you've got paper sitting off to the side and you're moving it. You know, in my mind, it's, oh, how does that look on camera? But in all reality, for all I know, it's there so somebody can see it and it triggers a thought. And God uses that to change their life. You just don't know. So I've spent a lot of my life trying to figure out if my basic needs are just not what God wants, because maybe the lack thereof is doing something in someone's life. And you don't know. There's the wounded healer philosophy. And a lot of people out there in the regular world have had such bad experiences with someone who claims to be a healer. They start to believe, you're able to treat me this way because you've never been through it and you don't know what it's like. And in a world of people who don't have Christ, who don't have love, who don't have empathy, that's often what's going on. Because they haven't been through it, they're able to just write it off. And they don't think they are, but it doesn't matter what they think because they're doing it. And so there is something to be said for the concept of not having experienced something, you know, not having the experience of something limiting you profoundly. But even for those of us who have Christ and we have love and we have empathy, and all those things being linked in the, interestingly enough, in the sort of triad of ways in which they're inherently linked, there is this concept of a wounded healer where you might have been blessed by God in a way to be a healer. But part of your mission on this earth while we're here, and for us, those of us who are living this way, we are here on a mission. Part of your mission might be to go through these different things so that you can understand in a way that you otherwise could never understand. So when you're speaking with someone who needs to hear it, they can never say, you don't know what you're talking about, you've never been through this. Because you do know what you're talking about, you've been through it. And I've thought about this because part of the reason why I've never really tell my life story, I did a little bit and then I decided, no, I actually don't want to do that. That might be violating my boundaries as they stand right now. But a long time ago, I was thinking maybe I will share some more of my life. But part of the reason why I've spent my life not sharing it is because you tell somebody just the teeny tip of the top of something that you're going through and they don't believe you, and it triggers all of this stuff where they don't have Christ and they don't have love and they don't have empathy. You start to learn, as someone who wants to live in those things, if I want peace, I need to be more protective of the self that God thought was important enough to make. You could take a lot of approaches, and my approaches were to shut up. Because that's just who I was, and I think it was something else I had to go through. One of my experiences in life is that I have had my voice taken away from me in every possible way. I even have had it gone to the point where I believed at some point it was permanent. It's been literal, it's been figurative. It's been in things I could write, things I could say. It's been in my ability to speak. Physically, it's been in my ability to speak the truth. It's been in what I was allowed to say. And I'm a singer who's lost my voice, so I wasn't able to sing. And so I've thought about that a lot, because that's now a bunch of stuff where I can understand that. When someone else is going through anything similar, I can get it and I can understand it and I can speak about it because I've been through it. And a lot of the times when I've come out of it, it's been because of miraculous things. Because again, I haven't had what I've needed in life. So what I have had has been in spirit. It's been something that God gave me or did to heal something that wasn't supposed to heal, or that in this world isn't even allowed to happen, where people won't believe your story because it's not convenient for them and whatever they're in, whatever their life is. I've been gifted, so to speak, with being a healer, and I also have been given the profound layering of knowing what it is to be wounded in a great many ways. So you end up with this sort of term, it's a gift and a curse, because you want to be able to bring health to people, and maybe part of your path as someone who can bring health is to experience what I call dishealth in such a way that you just don't even know if you're going to survive. So I've been through that, and the ringer with that, physically and mentally and everything. I've been through it all. And it leaves me thinking, where am I now? Many, many times in my life I've just thought, where am I now? And I'm at a very specific point, I think because of my age. All the things that are going on in my life now, where am I now? What is the point? What have I done? And while I want to do things for others, I also want to be able to do something for me. And so the timing thing comes in, because there are some things that are written in stone. If I wanted a safe childhood, there was a time frame during which I could have it, and it's over and done. It's dead now. I can't have this thing. So I kept waiting for the timing for that to come, and then the childhood was gone. Your teenage years are gone. Your young adult years are gone. You want to meet the love of your life and get married. Different things you might want. And you just sit here one day and think, God, why have you forsaken me? You know, it's that kind of thing. It's not about cutesy footprints in the sand things, because when your legs are falling off and you're dying, you remember feeling each and every step. You just want to know at some point, why am I here? What's happening? Why is it that when I need a home, it's not okay? And part of the thing that I've been thinking about, and I'm not going to have 50 million different answers. I have answers in my head, but they're really personal ones. A while back I had a situation with a friend, for instance. Everything just went to pot. And I could not understand why I said what I said, because it's someone who's triggered by Christianity. Things got really bleak and dark in the worst of ways, and I was trying to talk about why there would be hope for the future. And I went off and I was talking about what I'd been through and that I'd been around, because there's so many upsides and beautiful things that have happened. And they ended up just being messed up by this because they're so triggered by it. And the truth is that the difference in my life versus theirs is Christ. And there's no way I can keep that out of it. If I'm telling you why I'm still alive today, if I'm telling you why I never did anything about that in the past, if I'm telling you how I survived attempts on my life, it's always been something that was remarkable and that was perfect in that moment. And it was always something that we as mystics will know, even if we have to know it in hindsight. Sometimes we know in the moment. Sometimes we're in agony knowing in the moment because it seems like it's a cruel twist of fate. You're doing this for a reason. This is here to keep me going whether I like it or not. So that's always going to be in that story. And I thought, why the heck should I have kept my mouth shut? And I was in that place where, I was seeing things that God was showing me, and then this came up, and it was exactly the level of attack I knew had been coming toward this person. So I'm sharing my story. And at the end of it, when they're just offended, I just thought, in the moment I felt that specific sensation, God wants me to say these things. And afterward, it went badly, and I just thought, I must have failed. I said it wrong. I shouldn't have said it. It was the wrong timing. So we fast forward sometime later, there's another conversation, and what ends up happening throughout that conversation, things are said and things are touched on and things are opened up and something beautiful takes place. And that harsh moment that I was horrified of, the weight of it ends up lifting. And now I can have that weight and that concern for that person lifted off of my heart. And it all happened in that conversation because of what transpired in the previous one where I doubted everything. So I'm trying to talk about timing, but that's almost more about that kind of thing that sounds like blind faith, where you're not really sure. In the moment you're sure, but then everything falls apart and you're like, did I do something wrong? But then it all came together so specifically later on that no, I didn't, but I didn't know until that. And thankfully I had an answer pretty soon, because the last thing you want to do is push somebody away from the one thing they need, the one thing that can heal them, and the one thing that can make them ever be okay. And I was concerned that by sharing what I had been through and how I survived, I had somehow done that. So it felt horrible. But then it ends up working out. And I look at my life and I see how all these different things that were miserable happened. I'm going to tell you, at this point in my life, I don't even know how to say this or what to say. So maybe I should just keep some things. But there have been instances like that where I don't know, and I'm concerned and I'm scared and I'm feeling hopeless and things haven't happened. And I give up, and it's been decades. I'm 41. I feel like I've never had a home in my life because the word means something to me. It doesn't mean a housing structure that protects your head from the rain. It means, hopefully, in addition to all of that good stuff, you can feel safe and you can be okay. And that when you go in there, you're less likely to be destroyed than before you went in. Home means something to me. So I'm just thinking about this, and I'm trying to keep myself holding on, because a lot of people will always tell you you're looking for home, but we know that home isn't here, home is on the other side. And that's really not encouraging, because if anything, it makes you start thinking those other thoughts that I was afraid of with that friend. If I can never be safe here, why am I here? But the thing that I said earlier, we don't know what God's timing is and what God's plan is in every moment of our life. Because I've seen it play out in such a fashion that after I had been repeatedly and multiply destroyed for various reasons, somehow there's something in that destruction that led me to a place where I can be put back together. And this goes back to me thinking, when I keep throughout my life, I'm thinking, I didn't ask for this, I didn't sign up for this is not my fault. There's a big one. Because, you go through things in life and people will tell you, oh, well, that's your fault for various reasons, spiritual, manifestational. But when you're born into a cauldron fire of flaming trash, It's not a dumpster fire. Specific nastiness has been chosen. And you are, when you're born into that situation and you get to a certain point in life where people are telling you this was your fault, that's your fault, take your responsibility for it. But I wasn't here. I didn't exist in this plane. I came into something that was horrible. But then I end up getting to some place where, for instance, I go through my entire life. I have no idea what's happening to me. I don't know why people respond to me the way they do. And then, for instance, I discover I'm autistic. And that's what people do. They respond to you differently when they're not autistic too. And so now I develop this body of knowledge, and I have this interest in this and in us. And what I can do, and I don't know how often it does help, but I've had moments throughout the different channels that I've had and the stuff that I put up where someone has said something to me that says it did make some kind of a difference. And I just want to be able to help if I have the energy, so it means a lot that what I went through could mean something good for someone instead of just something bad for me. Because sometimes you're letting yourself go through things, not letting, but sometimes you're there and you're dealing with it because hopefully there's an upside. And that has been me all of my life. I've been that warrior. People don't know what this term means, spiritual warfare. I think I said to someone I know I said this, but I think my words were spiritual warfare is not an aphorism. It's a euphemism. Because obviously what takes place in the spirit is real. That's the eternal stuff. And then there's the physical version on this planet that's real inside of this planet in its own way. And it's a version of what's taking place in the spirit realm. So when we as Christian mystics are going through warfare and no one gets it, no one understands, it's very, sometimes for me, it's been easy to think, it's like I'm not going through anything. Other people are going through stuff on this plane. It's physical. We can see it. I'm not getting paid for this. I don't feel like I'm getting the reward for it. But it actually is being a warrior. Some of us are called to fight. And when I say the upside, before I said we don't know God's plan, I doubt the things that I want. Maybe I can't have a home because we don't know God's plan. So I don't know, maybe God's plan in my life and my fight and my battle is to always be hanging for some reason. But there's another side of that where, because we don't know God's plan and we don't know what's planned for every moment and every instance, you can live your life having that shocking confusion, being mistreated, not understanding why you'll never be good enough no matter how you lie and kill your spirit so that you can fit into someone else's mold because they can't think outside of their own mold and their own cliche. You kill yourself to fit inside of their mold. And you're still never good enough. And then for some of us, that will be the key. We'll learn, I'm neurodivergent. I'm autistic. I'm ADHD. I've always been stealth dyslexic. They were telling me, when they were telling me that I was failing tests on purpose to make their life miserable, and I couldn't see the words, that wasn't on me. It's there for a reason, and it harmed me. But in my experience, I wasn't harmed by the dyslexia. I was harmed by other people's horrendously unformed and satanic reactions to my gift from God, which is who I am and how I was made for a reason. So I put all this stuff together, and I I'm using the term, it's a video for mystics if it bothers you. Once again, I'm hoping God gets this where it's supposed to be, if anywhere, assuming that I upload it. It'd be interesting for me to find out if I upload it. There's something about that God's timing thing, because I went through all of that hell on earth and all of this trash and the things that I'm dealing with, and then I learned that I'm autistic, and suddenly everything makes sense. And it's key not just because it made sense, it's key because the level of hatred that I didn't realize I had formed for myself because of other people's behavior toward me went away. and it was miraculous. You don't live your life in a multi-decade depression and then wake up and snap out of it one day. And I woke up and snapped out of it. I think it was a Thursday. I don't know if I noted it. I've been trying to find it. I've been trying to find my anniversary of finding out. Because once I knew, I found out, and it took me a while. I told the story. It's in the first video on my channel. It took me a few days to figure it out, and I just didn't think about the whole event. I carried on in the life I was living before I knew. And then a few days later, I woke up out of sleep, and I woke up into something like I can't explain, like a miracle field of effervescent or evanescent sparkles. Something landed on me. Something was in me. The air was different. My feeling was different. The depression had gone away. It hadn't lifted, it was gone, and it has remained gone ever since. And the hatred left, and I felt love, and that was what hit me as soon as I awoke. The sensation of love for myself was so overwhelming. And I'm not sure I could ever have had that with all of the things I went through. If I had known all of my life I was autistic, then I could never possibly discover that decades later and have it be the key to everything else. I had learned. I work in a certain way. I'm a mystic. I had the approach. I paid attention. I studied love. I studied proper behavior toward myself and toward others. I studied everything, psychology and human nature, to understand the other people around me, to understand myself, even though it didn't always apply. There is no autistic psychology. So it's supposed to be, but there's describing it as a disease, and then there's telling us how we're different from what they consider to be normal psychology, normal behavior, that's NT. There isn't what's normal for us. There are not published books that I've ever, if they're out there, I'd love to know. I've never seen an organization dedicating all of its time to publishing books and papers and studies anywhere on this planet to what a healthy autist should be like and how we behave by nature. But what I have read is a great deal of the opposite, where someone studies something for the first time and all of a sudden it occurs to them like, oh, the results suggest that we need to ask more autistic individuals what their experience is. Groundbreaking technology, figuring out that in order to study someone, you need to ask them what the heck is going on in their life. But nonetheless, I wouldn't have had the experience of waking up out of the self-hatred that came from everyone else's treatment of me if I had known all of my life that I was autistic. Because that was the linchpin. Maybe there was something else that would have done it, but that was the linchpin that changed everything. And I baked on that for a few days, just walking in a daze, in a haze, in a horrible place. And when I woke up and I loved myself, I'd never felt anything so crisp and clear. It was like it hadn't been air that I was breathing all this time. It had been a weight, and the weight was taken from my lungs and out of my body. It opened up everything, and more things opened up after that as I learned more and more about myself. As I met the first people with whom I could form lasting relationships, who could relate to me, as I found that in autistic society, nobody's treating you like you're the nutcase all of the time, because we can just be who we are. So I can have a friend in the autistic society because they work like I do. You don't get ghosted, and I don't get ghosted, and I can have people who are there for years and they don't just disappear, and they don't pile things on me, and they don't, there's nothing weird, because it's just natural. It's the most natural thing. It's first nature. It's not second nature to interact with these people. It's first nature. And every format, every kind and every format of love that I've had since then has been possible because I knew I am autistic, and it has changed my boundaries. I have always been pro compatibility, and now I understand how to find more of that compatibility. I didn't understand it before. I didn't have the information I needed. But that all happened, and the point is, it happened possibly extremely late in my life, but if that's God's timing, and I survived all of this, then I came out of it with all this extra knowledge I studied it like crazy. I've been delving into the autistic, ADHD, everything that I can think of to understand life and myself, plus all my other interests. My love and passion for spiritual affairs had been squashed by people who call themselves spiritual, or people who call themselves religious, or whatever the fancy term is today that's supposed to delineate between things that are all ultimately the same. It's still always the search for that and that ultimate truth, and those are the people who killed it, but I've gotten it back now, greatly because of all of that. My loves came back, and now I have this conglomerate of information and knowledge, and I can give a viewpoint in a world where I keep listening to people out there in the whole world who are neurodivergent, and they get how it works on paper, but all they get is that is how it works. But there are all these questions, and why does it work? And I know how it works because that's been my life's bent. It's always in the spiritual knowledge. It's all been foretold. It has all been written. There's nothing new upon this earth. And I know the answers to all of this. In fact, I'm kind of annoyed these days because I keep using that old term that you're taught, you pick up in life. Why are people like this? Why do you do this? Why can't you? But I know why, because I've studied it and the answers are all there. So you get to a point where you can't say that. I'll start saying, I don't get why. And I'm like, actually, I do get it. But knowing it isn't what helps. Like when I'm confounded by someone, what I want is not so much the explanation of why. What I want is for the confounded sensation to go away. But it seems like everything that was happening in my life was all happening according to this nebulous concept of God's timing. And I've been walking through an actual hell on earth. And it always feels like there's never another side. And I've been dealing with a lot of stuff where I feel like there's never another side. But I've experienced the other side. And I've talked about some of it here. My whole life has changed because I experienced the other side. And I saw that there can be a change. And I've had this experience in my life of listening to people who do not have and do not want Christ, and they are depressed. And I have been in that worst possible place with that. And even now, when it feels like the cloud of depression is threatening, because, you know, we'll know once you get out from under something, it's not like no one's ever, like, no one, nothing. It's not like Satan's not going to test you with it again. But there's always a difference for me. I'm not depressed anymore. I don't live underneath that hopelessness. And the truth is that part of the reason why I got through it and I survived is because I had, even when I was hopeless, it was the format of hopelessness that still is built on top of a foundation and a basis of having hope. Having some kind of faith and knowing that there's a purpose, knowing that there's another way, knowing that there's an out. I was never truly lost like other people are, because I always had a foundational aspect of home. I was living in a compass that always pointed north. I knew what was true. And no matter how ruined I was, and I'm thinking about this, the experience and the conversation with that friend a while back who doesn't want Christ in any way, or didn't, or does, it's complex, but they live in a place of I don't want Christ. And it's really doing a lot for me, and I'm realizing a lot of what I have to say isn't for them. It's clearly God giving me something to say to someone who is in a place to listen, who's already there, who's past all of the other nonsense, and we just need to sit and think. And the huge difference between my depression and their depression that makes their depression feel like a weight and something particularly hopeless is because it is particularly hopeless because they don't have anything to hold on to. And every time, every moment in my life, and part of the reason why I've always made the decisions I've made, and when I look at where I've been and what I've been through and what it was like for me having God, the concept of going through that without God has been so horrifying to me because it is so much worse. I've been in it, I've been under it, I've been abused by it, I've been trapped by it. I've been befriended by it. I've been ghosted by it. I've been manipulated by it. I've survived it. I wished I hadn't survived it. And then I've been grateful that I did again. And the main difference I keep seeing is that they don't have that. and I do. I don't have hope, and I do. I don't have faith, and I do. And even when I feel like I don't have it, I'm still built on a foundation of it being there. So as long as I am foundationally here in existence, I still have something that they don't have, and we have something. So I guess what I'm trying to say in some way in this moment when I'm going through everything and I'm having amazing, beautiful up moments and highs and happiness, and the low moments are so thick because I'm learning things spiritually that I'm not ready to share. There's always some kind of hope that we have. There's always something there. And maybe that's all a part of God's plan, because as long as that valley, that vein of water, that hope, that breath of life is within us, people like to say God won't put more on you than you can handle, and this is not the quote. It says God will not put more on you than you can handle through Him, as they say. God, whatever it and they is and are, is not going to put more on you than you can handle through God. And if we have that, there's got to be some way we can go on. And I say this because I see us out there, and I see us talking, and I see us sharing, and we're in a new day, or we will go online and we will share it, I guess like I'm doing right now, very emotionally, some of us crying, we're going through stuff, and we're being honest, so the rest of us can know there's someone else, and there's a touchstone, and you're not alone, and someone gets it. Someone is not saying cheerfully, there is never hopelessness because you have Christ all along. You bet there's hopelessness. We know what it feels like. We've been to the bottom. And the reason why we're able to lift back up again is because there's something in there that can lift us. We have an up when other people just have a down. There's something when it feels like there's nothing that's still there. That's why you are here in this moment. And if you have been sent to see this, now or ever, there is something that's there that's kept you here until this moment. And it's a difference. And it's a powerful one. And we don't know what that reward is going to be on the other side in our specific detail necessarily. Some people have claimed that they've seen it. But there's a purpose for us not only here, but also on the other side. And more importantly, there's a purpose for us not only on the other side, but also here. So I don't know why we're all going through all of this, and when we're trying to manifest something and pray for something and get something and have a better day, I don't fully know exactly why it doesn't come when we need it. And we ache and we cry and we beg and we pray and we fast and we do whatever we're doing. That there's a difference in us. And I think sometimes when we're going for something and it keeps slipping away, it's because there's some kind of house of cards being built and it's not done yet. And so if it's not finished, we can't see it, be presented with it, we can't enjoy it being done. Because we're not the builder, God is, and for some of us, manifestation is different. This was the point I was trying to make, and I went into everything else. It's different because we have chosen for it to be different, because somewhere inside of us, we have decided we know something that we're not supposed to know. We based everything on that. And we're saying, because we get what the real point of all of this is, God, I'm not that interested in that SP right now. So if I'm interested in someone, but it's not going to be the best thing here, now, and forever for everybody, then take it away. And when you live in that place where you honestly want everyone to be doing their best, even when they are a living constant nightmare and torture, and you just want to walk out of the house and walk and run and disappear and fall in a hole and put dirt over your head so you can hear something other than the sound of loudness, you still, for some reason, want the best for them because that's what it's like to have Christ. Even when you want the worst, you still want the best. You know what it's like when you have all of those thoughts. For some reason, it's still always about what God wants and what's going to be best. We don't want to have that car now when there's something wrong with that car and it hasn't been recalled yet. We want to not have that car and not understand why until we hear. I've seen stuff like this happen until we hear about the recall notice later and we think, oh, what happened? Oh, maybe it's a good thing that I didn't. You know, trying to get out of the house in a hurry. I've been in a situation where somebody is yelling at the children, blah, 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 and it's not the children's fault, but they can't get it together because when you have that many children, let's face it, getting it together is a miracle on any level. And you're upset. You know, that many, it could be one. Sometimes it's just your spouse. It might even be your brain that day, but sometimes something's keeping you from getting where you want to go. And I've seen that thing where it's upset, yelling at the children, we can't do anything, I'm never in the right place. And they're just ticked off because they're like 2 minutes late. And I've been in the car with someone where they get there, where they were going, and about 2 minutes before, there was a fresh accident, and it's bad, right where they were going. And in that moment, we can't always know, like fresh, like no first response or anything yet. We're seeing it. It's done. And in that moment, you hear that person who was so ticked off a minute ago because of their perfect timing, that all of a sudden they start thinking, wow, if I had left the house when I was planning to, if there hadn't been that 1 or 2 minute, and yeah, people can get that ticked off about a 2 minute delay. If there hadn't been that 1 or 2 minute delay, maybe I would have been in that. Maybe I would have been in that, and maybe my children would have been in that. And maybe that twisted metal that we see right now is exactly why God held me back. Maybe it's not about my perfect timing. Maybe it's about God's timing. And the person didn't say that, but this is my example in that moment. You get stopped, shifted, thinking about what you desperately need, and it's not always as trivial and stupid as I want to be gone 2 minutes earlier. Sometimes, for some people, that's a big deal, but when it comes down to the difference between 2 minutes earlier or later leaving the house, and I'm sitting here thinking about being in what someone delightfully called middle age a while back, and I will somehow find some way to get them back for telling me that I was middle-aged, but it'll have to come in the perfect timing. I'm sitting here in middle age thinking, do I know what it's like to truly be safe or feel comfortable or healthy and have what I need so I can wash things properly and eat what's good for me? And I mean, is that even possible? I consider that way more important than a 2 minute fit. But I'm biased because I've been through a lot with people who throw 2 minute fits, among other things, and I'm not here for it. And I'm not trying to be unbiased right now because I'm completely exhausted making this video. So I'm just trying to use some horrible energy to do something good, and I've been thinking these thoughts. And I'm thinking that while some of us are trying to figure out why we can't get something good, maybe there is a colossal, life-altering, mangled pile of mixed metals and paint and flesh that we didn't know. And it's not like it was horrendous carnage. I'm just saying there are people in there, and these cars didn't get into that condition without those people being inside. It was scary. It looked messed up. I don't know how bad it was. I'm just saying I didn't see something like it was a primetime program and it's gross. I just saw something where I'm like, I don't know if everyone walked away from it because of the way things happen. And I've seen that a lot in life, but maybe there is a metaphorical or a literal pile of twisted metal that something that pure evil is planning. And if you manage to walk into the thing you desperately need, like a house, maybe it's in the wrong spot, maybe you have the wrong neighbors, maybe they're there now and they're going to move away and then you'll be able to come. There might be something horrendous that God's protecting you from by keeping you out of these situations. Who knows? But it's also possible that because this is what I'm really talking about, when you choose, God, I want this, but I want your will. I want people to be rewarded in eternity, and I'm willing to suffer here if it's necessary to make sure that more of us don't suffer forever. When that's your level of dedication and that's how you keep making your choices in life, sometimes we don't manifest as easily because that thing might be the linchpin. And it might be that if we got to get to that thing 2 minutes earlier, we'd end up in this literal or figurative twisted metal. And God knows that. And God's plan is to avoid the twisted metal completely by delaying everyone's car just long enough that everyone makes it alive down that freeway or highway or road or whatever it was. I'm just trying to hold on to that and think about these things, because there are things that I need to be okay. And I don't have them, and I have doubts. I know what I've been through, I know what I've tried, I know what hasn't worked. It hasn't been a life of, oh gee, maybe I'll try something for the first time today. No. It's a life of, I don't feel like there's anything left to try. It's all been done. And whether it feels good or horrible, I just keep thinking maybe some of the stuff that I have needed, I could potentially manifest all these different things, but the timing, it might just be being delayed, not because I can't do it, and not because I'm failing, and not because I'm messing up, and not because I don't deserve it, but because I've already said with the whole of my life, I don't care how many people tell me to my face I'm satanic. Literally, I've been called, quote, Antichrist before. Quote, Antichrist, end quote. Gotta put in end quote. I've been called that among many other things. And I'm still sitting here making the best decisions I can to not break back, to not say that thing back that's going to shred that person, know their details in their underwear drawer like they know yours, and they come after you from calling themselves, having a position in Christ, but they're coming after you. Some of us sit there and we don't play back. We don't say it back. We don't give as we got, or give as you get, I guess is the term. Just let them go on, because ultimately our mission, no matter what they're saying to us, is what they claim their mission is. We are functionally living in love, rising above, and only concerned with the ultimate answer to everything on this plane and beyond. We only want what is the best thing. And I don't know if that means that I won't know home until I open my eyes in the place where none of these horrible things are. There are other things that are very important to me, and I don't know if I'll ever have them on this side. Which means I don't know if I'll have them ever, this earth or the new one. Everyone is convinced, it's something I research a lot, that some of us, we're done here, it's over. The perfect earth, it's just for kicks. Everyone's convinced it doesn't mean anything. It's just going to come and we won't have a chance to do anything. So I don't know. Maybe that's just my eternity. It puts me in a position where I keep having to make a choice. Because I know when I'm tired, and I know when I'm done, and I know when I'm out. There's my battery, and I'm still not sure if I'm going to upload this, so it's fascinating to have to go through all that and change the battery and try to get it set up again just so I can record a video I might or might not even do. I don't even know if it's cohesive. I have no idea what I'll title the thing. I was trying to say, I know when I'm done. And I'm not that person for whom done means going to the dark side. But sometimes you just have to plot and never do anything again. Sometimes you just have to be still. Not as a spiritual move, but because there's nothing else left in you. And for me, that means that whenever I have the mental energy remaining, I'm going to think. And I'm thinking. And I'd like to make a more sort of based video on this. Spiritually based, where it's just dispassionate and talking about the difference between mystic manifestation and other manifestation. But this is the one I seem to have made today. So maybe there's a purpose, and maybe there's a point, and maybe I'll upload it. And I'm trying to figure out if there's something else that I wanted to say. Because that sensation of just being done You would just get to that place where you think, you're looking around at this world and you're seeing the choices people are making, and you see how they're treating you, and they're loud about it, and they've got something to say, they've got something to do, they've got something to vote with every word and every action. And these are the ones we're sitting around doing all this for. We're getting battered and beaten in sometimes every way, and sometimes all the time, for the people who have set up a society that can batter and beat us. This stuff will drive you insane if you don't have the power of Christ to compel you. But seriously, if you don't have something keeping you still and busy. Oh, cool, I've lost my outro again. I was like, oh, I've got it exactly where I need it, and now I don't have it anymore, but whatever, I don't need it. Oh, I just found it. I guess I did need it, or at least I have it. There's just really something interesting. A little while back, something happened, and I'm not going to go into what it was, but I was watching because it was a large global event, and it seemed to be mocking certain people's beliefs. I don't know if that was too loud, but let's say it again. A while back, there was a global event, and it seemed to be mocking certain people's beliefs. And I remembered of the things that I was watching, the coverage of it. One person on one news channel said, I'm really amazed, I'm paraphrasing. They said, I'm really amazed by the Christians. No one else in the world sits back and lets people mock their religion openly, outright mock their religion and their beliefs in the way that they do, and just takes it. And that kind of did something for me, because the average person will hear that and be like, yeah, right, that proves that they're weak-minded and they just follow. But when what you're doing is being different than the rest, and it's supposed to show, and someone who's got zero dog in the entire race, or at least they don't know about it yet, they'll find out. When someone who's got zero dogs in the entire race of how we behave as followers of Christ can look at us and be like, man, there are actions people usually take when someone is this disrespectful toward everything they believe in. And these people are actually just being really quiet and peaceful about it. And it really did something for me, because that was a small moment of faith. I think it boosted me in some way. That even when we don't know it, someone out there someplace is seeing us, and they see the difference. They're paying attention to that difference because we're getting it, going and coming, or we're being lambasted, or someone's mocking us and turning it into a grand hurrah that the entire world will hear about and can watch online for many years to come, because it was that big of a situation. And I've even been learning more about some of the significance and what they did at that time frame. But there's something that really got me about this concept, that while we're sitting here getting battered and beaten and bruised, so to speak, although sometimes literally, somebody can see it, and they see the difference. And there's nothing like sight for the blind. Have any thoughts or questions? Share them in the comments. Notice any gaps in the autistic, ADHD, or ADHD community conversation? Want a spiritually, Christian, mystically inclusive ND voice on a subject? Just looking for an extra opinion or viewpoint? Because I've always got one, let's be real, that's me. Share your suggestions in the comments. If I can address them, I might make them into a video. Remember to like, share, subscribe, ring the notification bell for all of my newest updates, and be blessed. Ooh, I just dropped that phone so hard. I'm gonna have to cut that out. Nanu. That's about it. Bye now.